Welcome to the playoff edition of Preps Plus Extra. How you doing? I'm Mark Stewart, prep editor of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Joining me again, you know him, J.R. Ratcliffe, sports editor of Now Newspapers. The playoff brackets are out.
We have them right here.
We have them right here. Yes, we do. Hard copy of them. And I mean, I guess we might as well start at the top. Let's just jump right into it. In Division One, our area obviously has defending state champion Arrowhead. When you looked at the brackets, what jumped out at you to start off with?
Not that this is unusual, but I see Division One as a road filled with many fewer landmines than what you see in Division Two. There's a lot of powerhouse teams in D2, undefeated records. In D1, we only have two teams that are 9-0 on the season. Not that that necessarily equates to success in the playoffs, but one of those teams that's not 9-0 is Arrowhead, as you mentioned, at 8-1, and they've played their best football at the end of the year. Their defense has been top-notch all year long. They've started to find some offense at the end of the season. I still see them as the favorite. In fact, I could easily see a rematch between Arrowhead and Sun Prairie out of the Madison area in the D1 title game.
Yeah. When you look at how the brackets line up, with all due respect to those other 7 teams in Arrowhead's, quad, I mean, it's easy to see them, getting to the semis, the state semis at least.
Definitely.
That's, and you look at the other half of, the other half I think is a little more interesting of as far as, area teams, the one that has Franklin and Milwaukee Marquette in it, Kenosha Indian Trail and Badger. What's your thought on how that one might shake out?
I think one of the biggest matchups in the first round altogether will be that Oak Creek game at Kenosha Indian Trail. Indian Trail got surprised at the end of the year by Racine Horlick, a team that was desperate to get a playoff spot, and late touchdown by Ricky Neal in the last 30 seconds clinched that game for Horlick. So Indian Trail on a 2-game losing streak. Oak Creek was playing their best football at the end of the year. They traveled to Indian Trail. It's a rematch from earlier in the year. I could see that game being one of the better ones in the area, for the right most likely to face Franklin, and that team, obviously, they have big expectations as well. But you can't count out Marquette at the bottom of the bracket, the 2 seed. Marquette, of course, just coming off a resounding win over Menominee Falls for the Greater Metro Conference Championship. Yeah,
the one team, another Southeast team that jumps out at me is Horlick. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a team to start the year. Coaches in that conference were thinking maybe this was going to be their year to challenge for the conference title. It didn't happen. They finished 4th, but they won 4 of their last 5 games. And I think really that victory over Indian Trail last week really solidified the fact that they're playing that, their success wasn't all due to the schedule.
Right.
That was a real quality win. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do against Badger, a team that last year, they have a lot of kids back from the team that got to the state semifinals last year. So that's going to be one team that I'm going to be looking at. If there's a sleeper out there, sorry to jinx you guys, hopefully not, and we'll see. But that's the team that I'm looking at that maybe might not have the greatest record, but maybe they could do something moving forward. You touched on Marquette. Marquette had a big victory last week over Menominee Falls, beat them 35-7 to win the Greater Metro Conference title. Let's hear what Coach Jeff Mazurchek and receiver Mike Thompson and a couple of photo bombers have to say about the victory.
Our game plan going in, what we thought would be a key to success for us was to be strong on defense, to really shut down their running game. They went to the pass a little earlier than we maybe had anticipated, and then we got a couple of nice picks. The turnovers are big in a game like this, in a championship game, and we were able to get 3 of them. And, our goal actually was 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble. Our goal was actually 2 fumbles and 1 interception, so we got those flipped up a little bit. This group from the beginning, coming off of last season, I think had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They played like they had something to prove, and I think that's what we expected out of them, and that's what we got out of them. And they worked their tails off in the offseason. They worked hard and getting better every single week this year, and it's starting to pay off now.
It's always great coming in on the road and beating a team, but it's even better when you got something to play for, and it just feels awesome being conference champs. The road's just started. We got 5 more games to play and win them all, and that's our goal. Get into Madison and win the Golden Ball, I guess.
Well, jumping into Division II, if you're going to look at one part of the whole Division II bracket, it's got to be the one that's got Homestead and Kimberly in it. There's a lot of, interesting moments that happened for Coach Dave Kill Saturday in terms of what pod he was going to, or what part of the bracket he was going to going to land in. But your thoughts on one? I mean, should these 2 teams be together, Kimberly and Homestead, two of the best teams in the state.
I think if you look at the WIAA layout, then yes, it isn't really if you're looking at it logically, no, of course not. We're talking about the two best teams in the state, most likely in Homestead and Kimberly, at least the two best teams in Division II. So in a vacuum, you'd like to see those teams meet in Camp Randall, and certainly not as early as level 3, which is kind of what we're looking at, assuming both teams keep winning. I do think, though, that the way they set it up, they divide the conference champions equally, or they try to. So teams that, like a Mesmer Shorewood, that's 7-0 in the Midwest Classic, even though they played smaller schools, they're not trying to judge any of the strength of conference. They try to weed that out of the equation. So a 7-0 team in the Midwest Classic is the same as a 7-0 team in the North Shore. Talking about Homestead, those teams are going to be divided equitably, and I know that was kind of the issue on the morning of the seedings being released on Saturday. They were swapped and swapped back, but they're trying to use the geography. Once they have the conference champs evenly split up, then it's about geography. Kimberly and Homestead, it just so happened in that northeast corner, they were both in that grouping, and so that's just how the system is designed.
Yeah. My first thought when I saw the groupings when they came out early Saturday morning is that Homestead and Kimberly, it does make sense that that's where they go. I mean, that's the route Homestead went last year. A couple years ago when Cedarburg got to the final, they went up north. So it didn't surprise me that the North Shore teams went that direction. That said, I think if the groupings came out and Homestead was placed in the bracket where Mesmer Shorewood was, and Mesmer Shorewood was initially placed in that bracket with the other North Shore teams, I don't think there would have been a lot of I don't want to speak for the coaches in that other part of the bracket,
right.
but I don't think there would have been a huge amount of giving that a second look, because in this area, you're just driving across town, really.
Yeah, and you can't forget too the Homestead Kimberly bracket. There are a lot of good teams in there. It's not just those two. Brookfield Central Hamilton, a rematch of a game that came down to a field goal 2 weeks ago. The winner of that game is probably going to get Homestead. That's going to be a good game. It's not going to be a pushover for the Highlanders, and you still got Cedarburg in there. You've got a lot of good teams in that corner of the bracket. You compare that to what, say, Waukesha West has in the Southeast. Nothing against West, great team. We're talking about the third best team in the Classic 8, probably one of the better conferences in the state. Third best team is the number 1 seed. They have it good. They don't have to mess with any of these 9-0 teams.
Yeah, right. They're the only. I think that bracket doesn't. Well, you got Waterford as a conference champion,
right.
And a tri-champion.
Yep.
But yeah, the strength of that top bracket is ridiculous. I mean, we've talked about Hamilton a few times, and again, I just think something about them that I just think they might. They could
make some waves.
They can make some waves in the postseason here. And one other thing with regard to the some of the controversy that came out with Homestead thinking that they or people really wondering why Homestead and Kimberly were together, is if you look at the WIAA language of how they place teams, it is confusing, and it's sort of reminiscent of a couple years ago when Mesmer Shorewood sued to get into the playoffs, and the WIAA had what it was written, and then they had what they really meant.
Right.
And this is sort of a similar case. So I guess maybe we should be fortunate that these pairings haven't been held up by
you're right.
by a lawsuit or something.
Right.
Yeah. So that said, let's switch to let's jump to Division III.
All right.
Greendale has always really from week one has been the team that we've pointed to. But hey, Catholic Memorials. I mean, they are the defending state champion. When you saw how this bracket came out, what's jumped out to you about Division III?
There is a really tough Southeast bracket. There always is. You always get Catholic Memorial against Pewaukee. In fact, if they meet in level 2, it would be the 4th consecutive year that those two teams have met in the playoffs, either in the first or second round. CMH right now has a 2-1 edge, and they'd be favored because they'd be the higher seed, the better seed. But for CMH to even get out of that pod, they have to beat Monona Grove, perpetually one of the best teams in the state at the Division II level. Greendale really, I think, has a pretty good setup in their corner of the bracket. I would expect them to come out, get to level 4. It's going to be tough, though. The level 4 game is either going to be against Wapaka or West Depeer. Those two teams are some of the best in the state as well. So that could be a state title type matchup. And with Monona Grove on the other side, I mean, we talked about D2 being pretty loaded. D3's got a lot of top flight talent as well. It's not going to be a cakewalk for Greendale. I still think they're the favorite here in D3, though.
Yeah, and I agree. On the sleeper watch again, Wisconsin Lutheran, I look at them and they're a team that they were really young to start the year. And, as the season has gone on, I think they've gotten obviously a little better, and that's what they've got, one of those resumes and kind of pedigrees that, you always got to look for them to be a threat in the postseason. But they got to get through Plymouth before they would actually, get to Greendale. So what's going to happen? None of us know. We'll have to find out.
We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, Friday. We'll see what happens Friday, and then we'll talk about it next week. But that's going to wrap it up for the playoff edition of Preps Plus Extra. For more Preps Plus action, you can watch me and Lance Allen every Sunday night on TMJ4. Take care.